Good morning, everyone. So we just started. My name is Rini, and we have with us Mr. Gopal Iyer. Gopal is a seasoned talent leader with over 17 years of experience working with large multinational organizations across various industries and geographies. He is a speaker in various forums and has spoken on numerous topics like the future skills in the world of HR, the future of work, the rise of the gig economy, the relevance of current skills, and how the business and talent landscape would change by 2025. He is a strategic management postgraduate from Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, a certified global human resource professional, a certified career transitions coach, certified executive coach, and ABNLP certified NLP practitioner. Thank you, sir, for joining us today for the webinar. So it's over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is mine. Sincerely appreciate the opportunity. Perfect. So thank you so much, Rini, and thank you and appreciate the opportunity. I know it's not been the best of the times to be connecting with you all. Would have loved to be in person, but I think that's what COVID has done to us. While it has created distance in terms of social distancing between us, but it has also brought us closer digitally. So I would sincerely urge each one of you to be participative, and I'm sure you may have a lot of thoughts, questions. So feel free to type them in the chat. I will take them as we proceed, and I think we'll be more than happy to also take the questions at the end of my presentation. I just put together some thoughts in terms of what would probably be relevant for you all, and I thought this will help. So what we're going through right now is nothing but a major reset, right? I think we were doing everything as we have been doing since the time all of us have been in this world, and I think COVID just brought a huge mechanics of the world coming to a standstill, and it required us to really look within, look around, and ask ourselves, what do we do to reset the entire world? And I think that's what it is today. And I will talk about some of the elements of innovation and how reskilling would really help each one of you through the journey that we are going to go through in the near future. So that was a bit about me, which you all heard Rini speak through. The current crisis. As of today, I think we have almost have had 1.2 crore cases. 562,000 people have died, but the most important stat, which is 73 lakh people have recovered, which is a really positive news. If we were to even look at the number of cases to the number of recoveries ratio. Um, um, in terms of the crisis, we have all seen crisis in our lives. It could be economic crisis. It could have been the crisis like the Y2K. But this one is very unique, and it has been an extremely difficult one for each one of us because it's a health and economic crisis all at once. And we need to be really mindful of how different this is in comparison with the whatever we have seen in our lives so far. This has had its impact on the unemployment rate as well. This number is just here to stay and grow, and as a result of which we will find ourselves in an extremely tough situation, and we really need to ask ourselves, what do we need to do to be able to even come out of this situation? As per the International Labour Office organization, 25 million plus jobs would be lost worldwide as a result of COVID-19. How has it impacted the business? You have had temporary business closures to permanent business closures in some areas. Customers have gone to pick up something else, do something else, not want to come to the kind of old or pre-COVID era of products or services. Classic example is in aviation or hospitality, and they've just moved on to do something else. There has been a case of high demand and lack of supply in case of uh, daily essentials, the food, the groceries, etc. Um, Not everybody could be remote. Education is a classic example, the sector that we are all talking about today. It was an extremely tough call for a lot of us to be able to think about how do we move the entire operations to remote operations. The consumption level has fallen down drastically. We're not buying the same products or services that we used to do in the past. The cash flow has been a challenge on account of job losses, and it's kind of creating a scenario where there has been a meltdown in the manufacturing sector. It's only in the last a month that we have seen some bit of activity, but we are no way closer in terms of the manufacturing sector into the pre-COVID era. And this has resulted in increase in deaths across all the class of people, be it entrepreneurs, be it middle class, be it even manufacturers at large. Uh, so this probably is what you may all be feeling right now, right? I mean, we were in lockdown in some form or the other. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's no support. There's fear. There is crisis. We are all tired, fatigued, just because we are all working from home. There's tremendous amount of pressure, and so on, which is all causing a lot of mental agony to each one of us. So the question is everything over? Clearly, the answer is no. All we need to do is to shift our focus to optimism, positivity, be inspired, create a vision for yourself, listen to people, listen to challenges that others have to share, create hope, be hopeful, and I would say uh, think about aspects that what all we have gone through in the last 100, 50 days, we will overcome this because humanity has uh, always faced odds like these, and they have always come out successful in a much more refined form. So I don't see that as being a challenge here at in this case as well. Yes, the numbers in India are increasing, which is a reason for worry. Let's not give away all what we have done in the last 100 days in terms of being maintaining social distance, being there at home, ensuring that ourselves and our families are safe. Let's continue doing that, but at the same time also look at how we could be optimistic about what the future holds for us. So that's what Albert Einstein says, right? We are in crisis right now, and the crisis is the greatest blessing for people and nations because creativity comes from anxiety as the day comes from the night, right? And who overcomes crisis overcomes himself without being past. Who gives crisis its failures and difficulties, violent his own talent gives more value to the solutions to the problems. The real crisis of is of a crisis of incompetence. And what we need to do is we need to once and for all stop all with the only dangerous crisis, which is tragedy of not being willing to overcome. So we need to ensure that we are all together in this and are willing to overcome the crisis situation that we are all going through. Quickly, on the industrialization and its impact on the way we have um, been going through our lives so far. Industrialization started in 1784. We started with mechanization, steam power, weaving loom. Industrialization 2.0 was mainly about mass production, assembly line, electrical energy, which means electricity was produced. We had car manufacturing that used to happen, or any kind of assembly line manufacturing. The 3.0 was more about automation, computers, electronics, which meant that we started seeing a lot of shift in terms of digitization of work. 4.0, especially today, and I would say in the last one decade, we have started seeing Internet of Things, cyber physical system, networks, which has connected us so beautifully. And I think we were just gonna make a huge giant leap towards the future. And I think COVID coming in at the same time has disrupted all the activities that we were planning to do, but also has given a lot of scope for us to reimagine, rethink, reinvent on what is it that we are doing and how could we do things better. So a bit about education in India, right? 80% of the people joining workforce today are unemployable. So higher education in India requires significant rethink. 20 million young Indians join the workforce every year. India's employment elasticity, the percentage point increase in jobs for every 1% increase in GDP, has been falling steadily over the past 10 to 15 years and is lowest than global and Asian averages, right? Industrialization 4.0, heralded as the biggest wave of technology disruption to impact all sectors, is likely to further reduce the labor intensity in most of the industries. We're all seeing that happening in across manufacturing and other sectors. Services sector like ITES, and banking, which were hiring in large numbers until recently, may not require the same number of employees in the future amid the rise of robotics and AI. And given this scenario, the much hyped term demographic dividend that we used to always hear, once used to describe as India's growth prospects, is being replaced by terms such as demographic time bomb. Doesn't sound encouraging at this point of time, but we'll see what we can do differently. So how has it impacted the educational institutions, right? Children and youth out of school due to COVID closure is 89%, right? Young people classified as NEET, which is not in education, employment, or training, we have about 267 million people, right? And all this says that there is a need for us to really look at how we are looking at education as a sector and what are we doing in terms of education and teachers who are in the field of educating people. We have seen innovation happening in the last 5 to 7 years, a lot more ever since 2012 or 2010, when the Internet of Things started becoming a lot more prominent, and the rise of 2G, 3G, 4G, and the broadband within India really giving way to people in terms of being able to make everything possible through digitization, be it through the websites, or be it through the phone apps, or be it through the apps for tablets. I think connectivity has been a huge plus in the last several years, and it has continued to disrupt education in some form or the other. Now, and classic examples would be Byju's, where they have really brought in blended education or hybrid education to the field of primary and secondary and even beyond in terms of education sector. Now, how did that happen? It's all innovation, right? So what is innovation at the end of the day? Innovation is creation, development, and implementation of new product, process, service with the aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness, or competitive advantage. But why is it important? If you don't do this, we would eventually end up not exposing our people, and they will become lost inventors because they would not know what does it mean to invent something or innovate something. There is a need to address this growing skills gap that exists in education today so that students are prepared for what is expected out of them in college and beyond. Inventiveness, the bridge between inventions and innovations, give students license to use the creative imagination. Um, and as we continue to embark through the information age, which is what is the age that we are all in, it's crucial for educators to implement new strategies that will meet the demands of both students and industries. Thanks to the recent technology and innovation solutions, students are gaining more and more access to education outside the classroom. Isn't that true? I think we are all seeing that happening right in front of us, and thereby expanding their learning and career opportunities in a variety of ways. As technology and innovation becomes first priority, it's important that students are offered creative learning aspects to expand, challenge their knowledge and ability to create. Technology can help students boost their concentration, retain information, and encourage individualized learning programs, right? Just a few quotes that I think would really help us understand this a little bit more better. Our future growth relies on competitiveness and innovation, skills and productivity, and these in turn rely on education of our people. Be open to adjustments. There is nothing about current moment in the industry, in the history, that allows for stubbornness, right? Um, so how are the schools gonna be in the next normal? Regardless of what we are going through in terms of being in person, hybrid, or virtual learning models, teaching and learning will not look the same anymore. We will have to really adapt ourselves to be able to be ready for the next normal, which will be a combination of being virtual and hybrid, which means schools must increase virtual readiness, digital platforms, technical skills, virtual expectations and norms. Health and safety protocols will affect class sizes, procedures, and instructional strategies. Students will have experienced learning loss and or trauma that will affect readiness. Some students and staff will remain at home. And what we need to do is consider these three things. Number one, identify upskills within existing teacher competencies. We're all imagining a world of pre-COVID where people were sitting in classes. We were in a consistent. We would have clear, consistent procedures, proximity, anchor charts, incentives, seating arrangements to accommodate 20 plus students. But we need to now think about expectations for camera use, chat, headphones, screen monitoring, digital FAQs, teaching and learning with face masks may not be required, but maybe student seating and no contact collaboration. It's extremely difficult to imagine all of this in the current context because we have just not experienced this kind of an education thus far. Gradual release model, formative assessment tactics, clear objectives plus scope sequencing were what we used to do in the past. But we should now focus on models for small group instructions, differentiation tactics, or strategies to address learning gaps. No contact collaborative exercises. My son is in grade 4, and their school started virtual classes since June this year, and it's been an extremely debatable experience for us as parents as well. As much as we would want to think that teachers should do A, B, C, D, E, we parents also have to shift our mindset in terms of being able to align ourselves to the newer expectations. Um, Leave aside the political class, the governments, and the Supreme Courts of the world across, really debating this amongst themselves as well as to, is this the right model? Is this going to help students in the mental well-being? Is the screen time good enough, or should we do something about it? Are we doing the right things by exposing students to all of this virtual classes because it doesn't really give us any kind of learning? um, it doesn't really give us any kind of experience, and all of that, if put together, has really opened up a debate across the country to really sit and evaluate, is this the right mode of education? And I'm sure each one of you are also going through the same kind of questions in your mind as well, in this field, because it's extremely challenging to imagine what you can't really see, and that's what is all about innovation, right? And how do we really work through the next normal? So number two that you need to consider is reskill for the new competencies. You never have had the experience or exposure to digital content and instruction. Probably daily integration of district learning management systems, use of virtual instruction software, polling, and digital informative assessment tools, technical troubleshooting for hybrid and virtual learning are some of the things that you may want to consider. And there are a lot of courses that are available today to be able to look at how do you enhance your facilitation experience for others in a digital world. Comfort with ambiguity, readiness to shift between virtual and in-person learning. We don't know when the schools will open, when the colleges will open, when the institutions will open, but there could be a potential where they could have some classes in person. And how do you manage that in terms of working through this ambiguity? Appropriately respond to school and district decisions that affect learning conditions and expectations. Point number three, recalibrate hiring, development, and evaluation efforts, right? I see that two people have raised their hands. Is there a question that you may want to ask?
No, that's fine. You can continue.
Okay. Upskilling and reskilling will require significant resource efforts on hiring, onboarding, development structures. By identifying present and future skill development, teams can begin to identify both barriers and bridges along the new and existing competencies, which means the kind of hiring we used to do in the past for teachers would require us to reimagine that as well, because we are now wanting to hire people with new skills. And do they have those skills? And if they don't have those skills, what do we need to do in terms of reskilling them or upskilling them? And how do we even end up hiring these people with the right set of assessment that we would need to think through? So what are we thinking about? Are we thinking about teachers, or are we thinking about more of learning facilitators? Now, the corporate field, or at least in the services sector, have had um, transitioned from imparting knowledge to facilitation of knowledge, which means the knowledge was available through various other portals that were made available through the online learning. All you needed to do as a learning from a learning perspective was facilitate that learning. So if people need to have a particular learning, identify what the learning needs are, guide them to the right learning requirements, and bridge the gap between the two. Here you don't need to be really thinking about it as being a teacher of a particular knowledge. Now, is that something that we would want to do for the mainstream education as well? That's a very good question for us to all think about. And how do we want to transition into not being just a teacher who is in a particular classroom, but also think about how you could be an expert in your field and be a facilitator in terms of giving access to people through various other education systems, right? I think these are the next generation skills that each and every individual we need to have. Strong social skills are extremely important, and I think in the last 100 days we have realized the need for that all the more, because at the end of the day we need to find a way to work with our teams, work with our work through decision making, solve complex problems that we have had, ability to communicate verbally with people inside and outside organization. Now, I know there is a lot of debate going on in terms of schools, at least in around the teachers really having to have had tough time convincing the parents to um, understand how are they going to be adding value to the education. Parents are coming up with really tough questions which probably they don't have answers to. If we don't really build on the skill of being very strong socially, we may not be able to give them the right guidance that they require at this point of time. External focus, right? Applying the learning to real world situations so that students are understanding what is happening in the real world, and especially in the workplace, often needs to go beyond what happens in many academic settings. Data analytics, right? I mean, the kind of trackers that we are talking about today, around be it COVID, be it anything else, requires a lot of understanding in terms of numbers. I mean, how do you track student absenteeism? How do you track student participation? How do you track student engagement? What are you doing in terms of reporting them? How does assessment look? How are you going to assess the students in the current scheme of things when it's not going to be pen and paper or pencil and book? How are you going to create and evaluate their performance throughout the year? Um, all of that requires great amount of sense of data. How are you going to capture such data is going to be a key and important ask for all of us to think through. Psychological preparedness and disaster management, right? I mean, COVID has taught us one thing, that no matter how prepared you are, no matter how much planning you could have had, it is not enough. And you will continue to have this scenario for the next 1 to 2 years or even beyond, till we find a vaccine to the situation and the world becomes normal again. And even in the new normal, you would have several such disasters and epidemics that will continue to play a role. How are you working through psychological preparedness for being, I mean, ensuring your personal well-being first, and also working through the disaster management aspects, so that you are ensuring that others who are coming to you for help are also being taken care of. Advent of growth of virtual education and smart classrooms. Now, the smart classrooms were there, at least in the corporate, or at least in the private school space, quite a bit. Uh, if you were to imagine classrooms today for even a KV or any other, I think mobile classrooms are extremely important. I was recently told that the government schools in Kerala started teaching students through YouTube live. So they would pick up a class, they would pick up a session, go online on YouTube at a particular time during the day, and impart sessions through YouTube. Now, is that a two-way communication? Probably not, but it's at least giving people some bit of knowledge that people otherwise would not have gotten if there was no digital intervention. So think about what more can we do through these virtual interventions and smart classrooms. And I think as we start using more smarter technologies, we also need to work through our own smarter being. And I think it's extremely important that we focus on that. So focus on the practical aspects, real-time learning, talking to people about what we are all going through is extremely important today. Many a times, I think there was an interesting debate that we were having yesterday within our community, and we were thinking about. I was talking about the experiences that I have had going through crisis in the past. None of us, I'm sure, have seen crises like these, but our kids today still expect us to um, uh, give them all the comforts and luxuries. Like, I know for a fact that my son's birthday was in March, and we were in lockdown at that point of time, and it was extremely difficult for me to make him understand that why I couldn't buy him a gift at that point of time. It was, he could just not come to terms with the fact that Amazon deliveries were not possible, or he couldn't go out, and or he couldn't invite his friends. So talking through the real life challenges is an extremely important aspect of education that we all need to, I mean, as parents and educators, need to keep in mind, and continue to enrich people through this. Otherwise, they will just miss the entire opportunity of having learned through this crisis. Need for public-private research collaboration. Now, if you think about research in the field of education, it was always a research through um, the public generally, but the private would probably do a different kind of research. There needs to be a collaborative approach, at least in times like these, where some of the complex problems that we are all going through needs a good solution, which has to be thought through on both the sides. So I think all of that is in principle. If you were to think about, in conclusion, the teaching is an ability which is priceless. However, with change in the attitude of learners, teachers will also have to change. Teachers will have to upgrade themselves with the latest in technology, develop skills like collaboration, self-study, individual discovery, leadership, technology, and networking to make themselves better professionals in turn create better future leaders, right? If you are in a community of teachers, make sure that you understand, learn from others challenges as well, come up with a solution that really helps both of you, no matter whether you may be in a different city or different school or different institution. You could be a college teacher or a professor, or and you're talking to someone who's teaching in school. Everybody needs help. How could you be there to offer help? Learn together is the key aspect that we all need to think through, because these are challenges that the world hasn't seen in the past, and I don't think we will see anything of this magnitude. In I mean, this is just going to continue growing till we find a plateau. So I think it's important that we stay together through these challenging times and find ways to create a learning atmosphere for ourselves as well. So, in summary, what we need to really think about is we need to move from providing knowledge to providing guided opportunities to students. We need to move away from lecture based instructional approach to interactive learning. The stresses of what of learning, thus capitalizing on the use of memory work, question and answer methodology rather, to emphasizes on why and the how of learning, thus encouraging students to do investigatory and exploratory work. Using fixed methodology confined in school and classroom to using variety of methods in teaching and explore different avenues of learning. Structured content to personalized content where possible. Less interaction with parents to instant feedback to parents, right? All of this will in some form or the other help us to come out of, not only be effective in what we are doing today, but also come out of this in a much more stronger manner. And I think with that, I would just end my presentation for today and be more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you, sir. So we have a few questions in the question and answer tab. So,
Mhm. Okay,
it,
so
can you see them?
yeah, I can see them. I can see them. All right. So the first question is, what are likely alternate career options for teachers? Okay. So, I mean, I would really want to understand why this question before we answer this, because at the end of the day, the career proposition for a teacher is of a lifetime, right? I mean, like doctors, like lawyers, I think teachers have a lot bigger role for um, to play in every individual's life. So I think a career of a or a life of a teacher is something that one should cherish and value utmost. Now, if I mean whatever the reason could be, but I think instead of looking at alternate career options, you should look at ways of enhancing uh, the possibilities that you have as a teacher within the role that you are. Now you'll ask me why. Now I'll tell you this, right? I mean, at the end of the day, um, the education industry in India or across the world is here for disruption, and it is getting disrupted every day, every minute as we speak. Now, if you think about when I was studying, which is almost about 25 years ago, in school, uh, it was a class of about 50, 55, 60 students or 70 students at one go. So the teacher to student ratio was that high. The quality of education was also very different than what it is today. The digital enabling of education today, at least in the somewhat private schools mainly, but also somewhat of the state schools, has given teachers a lot of avenues to be able to enhance their teaching capabilities. Now, when I said disruption, what's going to now happen is, imagine if all the schools forever would be in a digital format. Um, and have you thought through a career for as a teacher? You could teach students even beyond the current geographical area that you are part of. Uh, if the intent is to teach or impart knowledge or facilitate learning, the career alternatives, I mean, options that you have over and above what you're currently doing is a lot more. And I'll give you a classic example. My wife teaches music to students, and she used to go into a particular location and teach them. And we had about close to 15 students there, and this was once in a week, which was every Sunday. When the lockdown happened, we procured Zoom license and we started teaching students online. But that just gave us an opportunity to look beyond. Why do we need to just look at only these 15 students? I could rather go beyond and look at students across India, even abroad, and probably look at other communities than what we were trying to teach. And I think today there is a lot more openness within people to be able to try these matters. And all what we want as consumers of anything is convenience. And I think digital education provides you that convenience. So I would say look at options on what you can do to enhance yourself, or upskill yourself to be able to do a lot more in the same field. And I think that will be much more valuable. What are the major skills required for learning facilitator apart from technical and communication skill? I would say soft skills is extremely important. And when I say soft skills, the elements of understanding the empathy, emotional intelligence, and also to be able to. I mean, I think I covered some of these in my earlier decks as well, earlier slides as well, around being able to understand what's happening. Psychological safety is important. How are you able to connect with parents and give them feedback instantaneously? All of that, I would say, is are the skills that you need for being a better learning facilitator. What are your observations as HR leader on evaluating teachers and measure their effectiveness? Now, this is going to be an evolving uh, um, field. I mean, so if you look at evolution of performance management, we have always managed performances based on criteria that were written in an on-premise construct, which means you either need to be in your organizational building to be able to perform, connect with people, collaborate, work, get the work done, and all of that. Um, in the digital world, it's extremely difficult to really look at even what do I quantify or qualify as performance. How do I measure productivity? How do I assess whether you did good job in your learning session, or did you do a good job in teaching students today, or did you do a good job in the sessions that you do today? I don't think there are methodologies defined for that yet. I think there will be a lot of innovation in this space, I'm sure, through the digital platforms where they look at I mean, putting in an influence of AI, facial recognition, retina recognition, and all of that, to body language recognition, to be able to see, are you delivering the content with right set of conviction? Did you maintain the right level of contact with the students? Did the students respond back to the questions effectively, and come up with a solution that will be a lot more interactive, or iterative in a way, for you to know whether you did a good job as a teacher. How the scenario will change for rural students where technology may become challenge. Also, due to unemployment, they may be involved in earning livelihood rather than studying. This is going to be a huge challenge, and I don't think I would have an answer for that as yet, because beyond the I think today the question is survival, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, everyone is here to try and find a way to survive first, and um, look at everything else later. So you will, I mean, this will have an impact in terms of students focusing on earning livelihood rather than studying for the next few months, maybe a couple of years as well. But and lockdown is just going to make things a little worse. But if you are in a rural community already, find ways to work closely with your legislators or cooperators to find a way to boost up the capability of doing any form of education through YouTube or any of those. Today, everybody's offering free solutions for you to um, teach through Facebook Live or YouTube Live, which students are benefiting a lot. It's all about communicating that to this population, and whatever way you can do, even if it is 20 to 30% students getting benefited out of it, I think you would have done a great job in that space. Content is most critical in teaching. Most teachers need content upgradation when we go on screen. What is the solution? I I would say upskilling is the only option. I think we all have enough and more content that is available in the encyclopedia called Google. So it's all about being very curious yourselves as teachers to find whatever you need to be able to be more effective to do your job well. There are tons of courses that are available on platforms like Coursera, Udemy, and so on, at a very minimal pricing. um, Learn through that, and I think it will really help immensely to improve your ways of facilitation. And in terms of content, again, as I said, there is enough and more that's available. More than the content piece, I would say, how do you convert that into a relatable solution that the students are able to understand? And I think that's something that is a skill that you need to develop. Storytelling is a skill that really works well, and I think you would appreciate that we learned best from our parents when they used to tell us stories. And I think you would need to adapt to similar methodologies today to be able to gain attention of students than merely reading through PPTs. It will probably not help. You spoke about rethinking role of teachers as being facilitators of knowledge rather than traditional role earlier occupied. I wonder if this will be beneficial in India, where socioeconomic inequalities rife. Certain classes of students may require teachers to perform old school tutoring rather than just guiding them. Agree. I'm not saying no to it. I'm absolutely with you. I think the divide that we have in terms of classes of people will require us to have a blended approach. So I think it's very important for all the teachers to know the class well, right? I mean, you know the students best. And I think it's extremely important. You would know best if you were in a classroom, because you then are able to see the kid perform better, differently, and are able to gauge this very differently. I think what's happening, and this is what I see as a challenge with the current mode of teaching online for teachers as well, is they straight away get into um, uh, the syllabus rather than spending a bit of time into understanding the student a little better. And I think that could be a bit of anxiety or a bit of um, getting things done in rush. So I would say that could be one of the reasons. But it's important that we are all mindful of what the situation we are all in. The more mindful we are about what is it that we need to do in the current scenario and what is beneficial for the students at the end of the day, we will be able to do well. So I would say be more mindful, understand your students better, and you will be able to um, handle that well. What are your observations about government and organizations in sector, education sector help the teachers from them to adopt to the new normal, the technology advancement teaching? I would say it's a tough one. Um, I think government's first focus is going to be to save lives. It's not going to be as much about education and how the education happens and the skills and all of that, right? So the most important thing for us to also think about is how do we survive. So the government may or may not prioritize this over anything else at this point of time, but it is a matter of survival for us as teachers. What do we need to do differently to be able to stay relevant is the question that I would say you all need to ask yourselves, and pick up some of these things and do it yourselves versus um, having to wait for some kind of support from the government. In future, we are going to expect more virtual schools and colleges online. Going towards next era, there's going to be a big challenge scenario in education reforms. I think it's more a statement, right, than a question. Yeah. I mean, of course, reforms will happen, will definitely happen. There is no doubt about it. I think, I mean, I can take a lecture on reforms on this, but I would say this has just opened up a world of opportunities for foreign um, educational institutes to come to India because borders are no longer a barrier. We'll have to wait and see how this all unfolds and what kind of investments come through, and what are the brands that are entering into India, and how does that impact all of us in the current scheme of things to be able to be um, alive and relevant as well. With limited access to technology gadgets, stable internet, where does this leave rural schools? How would it be implement there? I think I already answered this question. What are top 5 skills teachers need to adopt, learn through the new normal, be relevant? I also answered this question through my deck. What are the courses that one could enroll in to upskill themselves at this point of time? I mean, I cannot recommend a particular one. I think there could be more. It purely depends on who you are as an individual in terms of being a teacher and what is relevant for you and what is important for you. So you can go to Coursera or Udemy or Simply Learn. There are a lot of platforms that are available. Whichever skill that is most important for you, be it facilitation, be it data analytics, be it critical problem solving, there are design thinking. There are tons of courses that are available. All you need to do is ask yourself, what are you going to do after you learn anything that you're learning, and how is it important for you today? As teaching nowadays becoming AI based, do you think near future teaching profession will exist? Of course it will. There is no doubt about that. I mean, technology can never ever replace a human being. It will only complement all of us. And at the end of the day, as much as we want uh, to rely on technology, uh, we will. I'll give an analogy here. There was a movie that Rajnikant uh, and Deepika Padukone did called Kochadayan, which was purely a digital movie, not an in-person movie. There was so much hype created, but people didn't go and watch it because they just couldn't really take the look and feel of Rajnikant being more in a graphical format, right? We need people around us. We need people, I would say, a flesh to be able to touch, feel, hear, to be able to live. We are social animal. I mean, at the end of the day, we need all of that to be able to feel that we are safe in an environment like this. COVID is probably going to last only about few years, if not few months. But teachers, and I mean, in fact, all the professionals that we have always had will always be alive. The digitalization of that will just enhance the experience for everybody, including the facilitators and teachers and students as well. Kindly let us know authorized or trustworthy sites for online teaching. That's a tough one. I mean, I would say it's for you to really do your research, and find out what are you good at, um, and you probably need to partner with the right platform and find ways to deal with that. Can you please share which platform helps upgrade skills of teachers? Yeah, I already answered this. What teaching methods I can use with my students who do not have study? Yeah, I have already answered this as well. Sir, the PPT, yes, I can share that. I just need to make a few edits and share that with you. I used to teach engineering in the 1960s. Curiously, most methods is few. However, yeah, we need no matter whatever digitalization we do, we need to have people teach some of these things to us. It's all the delivery and the style that will evolve, but I think there is no doubt that we would need teachers to continue to train students as well. I'm an English teacher with 15 plus years of experience. I'm planning for online classes. I expect your guidance. Absolutely. I mean, I would say each one of you need to go through digital marketing course, I would say. And I mean, plenty of options available through a lot more these platforms like Udemy, Coursera, etc. Digital marketing gives you a fair understanding of how you can tap the potential of internet. So if you are an English teacher with 15 plus years of experience, how many people would know that you are someone with 15 plus years of experience? How are you going to make people know of who you are, what you do? In the world that we are living in, where it is currently partially closed, where we still don't expect to move around and make ourselves available in person, it's extremely important that we have a good, strong digital presence. So, have you thought about Facebook marketing? Have you thought about creating a website of your own? Have you thought about being on LinkedIn and market yourself of whoever you are, whatever you do? Have you thought about creating WhatsApp ads? Have you thought about Instagram ads? You may be thinking all what I'm saying is probably too difficult, but actually it is not. These are very simple solutions that are available. Yes, efforts are needed, but once you have experience in doing this, I think you're just opening yourselves to world full of opportunities that you probably not have thought through. So I would just say all of you are listening to this call, get the digital marketing course done. There's one available on Udemy, which is very cheap as well, and you can all get that done and gain a lot through that. I studied from IGNO and SMU distance learning method. What I feel though possess theoretical aspect, a very lack experiment. Yes, how will the new virtual concept will overcome these challenges? Absolutely, this will be a challenge, which is why we just agreed that digital only is not a solution. Hybrid model will evolve, but it may be a little bit challenge in the current scheme of things. So we may live with digital only for now because that's what is the only thing that we can do. But think about how you can. I mean, I think this is a question that you need to ask yourself as much as you're imparting, teaching your students as well, to say how you can make this experimental for students. Can we give them some of these experiments for them to do research online and come up and tell the whole class a story? Or is there a way that they can do something in their community, and give relatable experiences or details that are currently relevant? And I think that would really help go a long way. um, what are the major skills required for online teaching along with subject knowledge? I shared this through the presentation that we just did today. Teachers play roles at the same time: teach skills, subject, mentor, counselor, and sometimes the link between parents and student itself. How do you propose a role to be reinvented, the role of a teacher, to make it relevant in COVID times? Communication is extremely important. How you communicate with students, how you communicate with parents, how you bridge the gap between the two. Are you ensuring that you are providing the right context to the students and providing the right context and update to the parents, and are being open and vulnerable about the challenges that you yourself are also facing? Let's all understand we are all human beings at the end of the day. We are not isolated in this situation or are any different than the parent community or or the student community. It's okay to share the challenges that we are going through, and I think it's extremely important. That's the best way to be able to link the or bridge the gap. Technology is developing every day. As a teacher, how do you keep ourselves updated with daily need for upskilling, as the skill that might look important today might not be needed tomorrow? So this is going to be a, a mindset shift that each one of us need to bring in ourselves. The way our Indian education system has worked so far is we've always given importance to courses um, and graduation certificates and post graduation degrees than skills, which probably is not going to help. So, for example, I did my commerce graduation 17 years ago. Um, None of what I learned in my college is relevant today. And I'm sure a lot of you would agree to the same thing, that whatever you learned in your school probably is not even relevant today. What that tells you is that what was relevant yesterday in terms of skills may not be relevant anymore in the current scheme of things. So it's going to be an ongoing learning. So you may want to upskill today, which may have relevance only for 6 months or 8 months or 12 months or 1 year, but shouldn't stop you from learning more and going beyond, right? At the end of the day, you need to find ways to continue to upskill yourself more frequently. Uh, how blended education works? Tough question. It has to be really something that we need to try and understand how it is working. Seek feedback live from the students. Seek feedback from a parent community. Evaluate and see how students have grasped the knowledge. I think purely digital has a good way of doing that, because they have assessments at the end of every module that they do. But the bigger challenge that we have in today's generation of kids or students studying is retention. Now, is retention at all something that we need to worry about, or is it more about what they learn out of it? And given the rapid change that we are seeing through in the world today, whatever we may teach them probably may lose relevance by the time they finish their education at the end of the day as well. So it's going to be an extremely tough one for us to look at how the blended education is going to work at the end of the day. How can a teacher manage discipline, classroom control, and digital platform? It's a factor of what platforms you're using, what the platform allows you to do versus not allow you to do. Some of the platforms like Zoom are still very nascent in terms of managing uh, it for classrooms per se, right? I don't think there has been a technological invention that clearly gives you a classroom based product. So Zoom is more like an interaction session. You hear me, I hear you. You can ask questions at the end of the day, more relevant for people like you and me. But for students, they don't even know how to put someone on mute, if they have to turn on or off their videos. They don't know what to ask questions, how to ask questions. So they're learning through all of this themselves as well. And as parents, we are trying to do our bit as well. But it's going to be an evolution, ma'am. It's gonna require someone to create a lot more environment
Sir, we may just cut in between because it's already 12 o'clock. Your voice is also not coming in.
My voice is not
Yes,
coming in.
yes, now it's back. So maybe we just go through and see some top questions and finish it off.
Yeah, yeah. How far we can ensure students are really attending the class? I already tried to answer that question. Talk about upskilling. I think I also answered that question. Handle homework. That's a big one. Get creative. Make WhatsApp as the mode of communication is what I would say. uh, you see a shift in respect of more personalized content for students and assessments, trends, interest areas in early years akin to homeschooling. Uh, I would prefer to take this question offline if that is okay, because this is a very hot topic that we are seeing around homeschooling. So happy to take that separately offline, Rini.
All right. So thank you so much. I'll just take 2 minutes to talk about eVidyaloka and our new
Sure,
initiative.
sure.
So we at eVidyaloka, we teach rural government school students. We teach them remotely.
Uh-huh.
We have volunteer teachers across the globe who teaches online.
Mhm.
And due to this current pandemic situation, the life has affected everyone, and this
Yeah,
actually has a more bigger impact for rural kids because they are kind of unable to get access to education.
absolutely.
So from our part, we are doing our way to ensure these children continue learning, for which we have started a small campaign, which is called Back to eVidya School. I put the link to the same on the chat, and request all of you to go through it and try share it with your friends and family. So thank you, sir. Thank you from the eVidyaloka team members for joining in us and giving us such an informative
Sure.
talk about the future of education.
Sure. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity. And all I would say is stay safe wherever you are. Be optimistic. We will sail through this and appreciate the opportunity again. Thank you.
Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.